Here's the 1-year change in home prices in the US. So it's really the South that's seen the biggest price drops. Moderate decline in certain parts of California, although some parts of California have actually gone up. But home prices continue to go higher in most parts of the North and the Northeast. And I wanted to show you this as well. So this goes back 12 years. This shows you whether we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. Again, it depends on your market, but this is just overall. The red line represents how many buyers are actively looking. The blue line represents active sellers. As you can see over the years, there are fewer buyers and fewer sellers, which has resulted in a depressed housing market. That's why the activity is much slower. In 2020 through 2022, there were so many more buyers than there were sellers. So what happens in that type of situation? Well, if you have so much more demand than supply, then it becomes a seller's market and home prices shot up much higher because of the massive supply and demand imbalance. But right now, it's really shifted into a buyer's market. However, if you notice the gap between the buyers and sellers, our current buyer's market, it's not as pronounced as it was a seller's market back in 2021 or 2022. But this is why home prices have stopped shooting up. But right now, according to the MLS data, it's a buyer's market. There are 35% more sellers than there are buyers. So this is driving downward pressure on home prices. However, you have to remember that we still have inflation. The M2 money supply is at record highs, which is naturally causing upward pressure on home prices. Okay, so that's the current status of the housing market. Fewer buyers and fewer sellers, but it's become a buyer's market. But now that the Federal Reserve is becoming more active, we're going to see how their monetary policy affects the housing market, which I'll keep you updated on.